everybody, I'm so happy to have Rosie Lucas on the show today. I've been really wanting to have her on the show. We met and I heard of her on the Embrace conference. How you doing today, Rosie?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I'm excited and yeah,
Yeah, well, you did a great job at the Embrace conference up there sharing, and that's something we definitely want to talk about. And I also had the pleasure of meeting you at the um, Clippers game in LA, so you qualify for a life promo. So you're doing great things. I definitely believe, a future superstar, well, already a superstar, but here's some things that you already qualify for: the Hawaii promo for selling life insurance, the Sweet Life toppers, and it's been 10 years, but you're the first one in 10 years in Washington to write 100 life policies last year.
that's
And,
right. Yeah.
and then you told me at the game too that 40 of those you wrote in 1 month in December at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So that's unbelievable. It's you're off to such a great start to your career, and you've been on stages many times, and you're just somebody that we all want to learn from. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your agency and maybe even how you even got started in the business?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a new agent. It feels like I'm still my first year, but been an agent for about 5 years. This is my sixth year. And it's pretty interesting how I actually got started with farmers. I used to be in the middle medical field. I wanted to pursue that optometry and become a doctor. Following my mom, she wanted me to be in the medical field, but my passion was something else. But I was just kind of following what my mom, what she couldn't do and what I wanted to make her proud in that way. But working there for 3 years, I realized that wasn't my calling. I didn't know what I wanted to do still, but I figured that there was something out there for me. So one of our patients at that time, she was working with a farmer's agent and she was working multiple jobs, but I would see her come in every time for her appointments. And I asked her one day, I was like, well, hey, I would see that you're coming in talking about your jobs. Do you know anybody hiring? Is your boss hiring right now? I was only like 20 years at that time, or yeah, no, 22, sorry. And then she's like, well, we just recruited a whole bunch of people. I'm sorry, but I'll keep an eye out for you. So a little bit of time goes by and she calls me on Facebook and she's like, hey, Rosie, I have my district recruiter here. He wants to talk to you. I'm like, district recruiter, what's that? Like something new. So I get on the phone, we talk. It's a Facebook call at that time. And I'm on work hours. So I'm like, I gotta rush to the bathroom really quick, take this phone call and see what's going on. So it's a really quick phone call. They set me up with an interview. I'm like, okay, for next Monday, let's do this. Um, it's interesting because I don't know what the interview is for. I call her later after that phone call. I call my friend and I ask her, so what is this about? Like, this job. She's like, don't worry about it. It's customer service. It's what you already do. Nothing new. I'm like, okay, cool. This is where the trust comes. So I show up to the interview, ready, resume, everything. And I walk into the building, the district building at that time. There's multiple businesses. There's like a chiropractor office. There's like some other agency there. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's some chiropractic medical office similar to what I'm doing already, right? So I walk in, okay, well, this is not the suite number. I keep going. I'm like, it says Farmers Insurance. I'm like, oh, great. I was 22 at the time, or yeah, I was, and I'm like, I don't even have insurance on my car. I'm like, wow. So I walk in there, I meet with Raul Castillo, he's our district manager now, but back then he was our recruiter. He interviews me, he shows me, what Farmers is about. I'm getting interviewed to work for another agent at that time. And I look at his achievements, I kind of look around the room, I'm like, well, this looks interesting. And I ask him, so what do you do? Or how do you, become this? What is the process of becoming an agency owner? And he's like, well, it's a process. It takes time. And he shows me the step-by-step program. And I'm like, well, I want that. I want to do that.
Hmm.
He's like, well, slow your horses. It's a process. But at that time, it was, I wasn't happy with the job that I had. It was a 9 to 5. I was living paycheck to paycheck. I had my daughter at that time. She was very young, and I needed to find a different way of making income. So I saw this opportunity, and I said to myself, I want that. I told Raul at that time, I want, this is where I want to go. So get hired. I ended up working at the district just because it didn't work out with the agent for distant location and such. So I ended up working for the district for about 6 months. Everybody was really nice. The recruitment, the training, I love that job. Like the Christmas parties, everything, the environment, it just made me feel so welcome. Learning opportunities, studying for PNC live. It was like an education as well, like me learning something new. That was very interesting. It was something called the hub that the district had. So basically, it's like a calling system where I would answer phone calls for other agents coming
Hmm.
into the district. And I love that. It was just a great way for us to learn the system back then, the old ECMS that we used to have, the old dashboard, all that
Mhm.
stuff was really fun. I enjoyed my time there. My district manager comes to me. He's like, well, Rosii, it's time to move on, go to an agency. I'm like, well, I was super comfortable there. So then about 7 months later, I go and work for another agent closer to where I used to live. And I was his producer, and that's where I got my engagement with other clients. I learned a
Mhm.
lot of stuff from him as, marketing, talking, sales, all that experience. I used to work in the medical office, but it was mostly like just back office stuff and not dealing with a lot of people. So I went over to work at his office for a few months, and I got the experience for like selling. I learned quite a few things, and I remember the first time that I met with the client. We made an appointment. I thought that he was going to do the appointment, talk to the client, and I was just going to shadow him. No,
Mhm.
he's like, you're gonna do the appointment. He wants to review his auto coverage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. I was so nervous, but it's those experiences that kind of prepare you a little bit. I was nervous, talking to him about the coverages. I knew the coverages, I knew the product, everything, but just, talking to him face to face, that was my first appointment in person with the client. And then after that, it was just, like one after another. And I got my exposure in talking with clients about coverage and started feeling a little comfortable. So, it's something out of my comfort zone. And then, well, after that, then I went back to the district as a reserve agent. Then I took over an agency, and that was in 2019. Brand new agent. And I'm on my 6th year, and here I am.
Wow. So from the very beginning, you knew you wanted to be an agency owner.
Yeah, when I walked into that room with Raul, he was interviewing. I saw, like farmers and what is this? Hey, that trophy looks cool. What is that? And he's like, well, farmers, if you qualify for this achievement, farmers pays for you to go to a trip with you and a +1. They pay for everything. I love to travel. It's like one of my biggest passions. I've traveled alone to different countries, so that's just something that I find really interesting. It's one of my biggest passions to travel, to get to know. And oh, as soon as he said travel, I'm like, I want that. What is it? Yeah,
So, and you said you had to be agency owner to get those trips. So you said, okay, that's what I have to do.
yeah.
But you didn't know anything about the insurance business, but you had your goals set very high. Where do you think you got that from?
I think it just comes down to my mom. Um, My mom was a single mom. She brought us to Washington when I was like 5 years old, and I knew no English at that time. And I think it was just her, like seeing how she worked really hard to achieve something. I saw that part of her in me. that in order for you to get something, you have to work hard. It's not just going to be given to you. And that's just kind of like the what I have in me. Like if I want something, it's gonna take time. It's gonna require a lot of time and effort and dedication. It's kind of like, like let's say like you want strawberries, right? Right now you can just go on your app and order strawberries from Whole Foods and it'll get delivered to your door. But back then, a few hundred years ago, you had to find seeds, plant those seeds, water those seeds, make sure no rodents got near it, and your strawberries, months later came. So it's nothing easy is going to come fast. And that's kind of like how I picture things sometimes, like, okay, it's going to take time and dedication, but I think it's the upbringing of how my mom brought us to a new place, new location. We moved a lot too when we were younger. So it's getting to know a lot of different areas as well, different people in life situations as well. So I think it's just that upbringing that makes me want, if I want something, I'm gonna put some work in there and I'm gonna do it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, a lot of times those type of things you see from your parents, in your case, your mom too, but I bet there's also a lot of self-belief that she gave to you too, because you have to believe in yourself to be able to feel like you could open up an agency and a business that you're new to. So you started your agency, and how did those first few years go?
The first few years, it was like great, having an agent, it's like the belief of gonna become an agency owner, have that flexibility, and I'm gonna, I don't have to show up at 9 o'clock, I don't have to leave at 5 o'clock. But then, once you start, doing the work, it's like, oh gosh, like I'm here at 7 a.m. I'm here like I'm the last person to leave. The first few years, it was rough. It was very rough because I was 25 years old when I took over the agency. It was new to me. I was new to running a business. At first it looks good, my income was a little higher than before. But you learn a lot, and I learned a lot too, how to like better manage my money, how to run an agency, the overhead expenses, and become a little bit more responsible too. And that way, the first year it was 2019, and then the location that we picked, it's like a very open location. So we had a lot of walk-in traffic in 2019, which
Hmm.
was great because that was the idea as well. We're really close to a mall here in the city. So we had a lot of walk-in traffic, but then 2020 hit,
Hmm.
what happened in 2020, COVID. The streets were dead. Then I lost my one employee. I started off with one employee. She was great. She was awesome. So it was just me by myself. Okay, so we got through COVID 2021, but it was kind of hard to get back up and get in the game and start, So the first 3 years, I would say, it was tough. It was I had a 5-year plan when I took over, and that plan, instead of like going up, it just went down. My folio was like lower. My renewals, I was losing clients. And it was very rough because nobody likes to see that. Nobody likes to look at your folio and like, oh shoot, I lost a couple $1,000 there.
Hmm.
You know, it's not a very fun experience. So that was like where I had to make a decision, like something has to change. And then we'll talk about that, how that's when I transitioned into life insurance.
Okay, yeah, no, please tell me how you strategized and how what the transition looked like for you. Because I think a lot of agency owners experience that where, after a few years, starts getting harder and harder. And that's kind of like the point where, you know, frankly, a lot of people kind of give up and or they find another gear and they find something that works out. So tell us where you were at that moment and what turned things around for you.
Yeah, so I I think I got overwhelmed with, it's just me by myself. Um, Farmers running an agency. it got to me where I can't do this anymore. Like, what am I doing with this? I'm not producing as much as I want to produce. It got to my head where I was just sitting here on my desk, just looking out the window, like, what am I going to do? Like, this is serious. This is my life. This is what I invested myself into for my daughters. Now I have two daughters that, I have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old. I have their pictures here. Every time something comes up, I look at their pictures to remind myself of why am I doing this? And it was that moment, like my agency was bleeding. My overhead expenses were just increasing, income was lowering, and I needed to make a decision. And that was something that I was like, okay, it's coming to the end of 2022. What am I going to do next year for 2023? I have to do something. What is something that I already do that I can do more of? And that was where life insurance. Life insurance is the highest paid commission. The bonuses are great. That's what's going to get us out there. I had to make some life decisions too. I was living with my daughters and myself, so I had to downgrade. I had to go live with my
Mm,
mom for a few months until, I settled in. But that was a plan that I was like, sometimes, in order to go forward, you have to go back. It's like a bow and arrow. The farther you go back, the further it goes. So I had to do that and cut back on some of my spendings and strategize that way. Like, okay, this is how I'm going to be able to afford an employee too. Like, I couldn't afford an employee, but I could not afford not to have one. So I had to strategize in that way, and then I hired my first employee. Um, he got hired on, and first quarter, the plan was to write, like certain amount of life insurance a month. First quarter, January, February, I in March, I did not write nothing. It was zero. So that's just something like I was starting to get like, oh shoot, like, we're this is supposed to be the year where I'm supposed to produce more, and we're at zero. It's the end of March and we're at zero, right? But
mm,
that didn't mean like I wasn't asking. I had already started asking about life insurance since 2022, but I wasn't asking enough.
mm.
Um, and in April of 2023, I wrote my first big IUL. It was like a $12,000 IUL. So this was a client that it was consistency. I would always ask him and like, bring it up. And he finally said yes. And I was like, haha, great. Like, now how do I write an IUL? Right?
Yeah.
So I reached out to my district manager at that time. At that time, he was still an agent. So I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, Rose, so I have a client who wants an IUL. We talked about it, did an illustration, and he wants to do it. He gave me all his information already. Can you help me write it? And he didn't hesitate. He was very helpful. He walked me through. I was like, "What's this?" Allocation and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't know much about the product, but that's something that I was very interested in and like wanting to know more of because for us, we're like I wanted to bring more income to the agency too, but not just that, but it was changing. He has a family, so it was changing a life for him too, that something new that nobody had ever talked to him about an annual or even a life insurance policy, nothing. So it was something that made me happy too because I wanted to, okay, yay, I did this for a family. Now I can do it again. So it was kind of like a good momentum. So April came. I think we did like six issued and paid. May we did like two, June we did like two, and then like it started going from like 15 and so on. But it wasn't until November we did 20, and then in December the 40. Yeah. But it was
You
kind of like a work in progress, you know?
you went through that way too fast. There's something must have happened between uh, October and November. You know,
Definitely.
it just doesn't happen overnight where I mean, yeah, a lot of things you worked on, they fall through later. That's great. You wrote the IUL because that was pretty much still a new product back then. You jumped all over it and you learned. And again, I see a lot of situations where you're put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and grow from that. But what made you be able to turn up production, or was there like a shift in mindset or anything that caused that big change there?
Definitely. It had to be a change in mindset. I don't look at life insurance the same way that I looked at life insurance a year ago, 2 years ago when I started. Life insurance has become a very impactful thing to me. I hear, you hear district managers write more life insurance, you hear life insurance, at conferences and such, but just the things that happened, towards the third quarter, is something that I shared on stage. Um, it's, the stories. I think that the right situation or circumstance in life has to happen to you in order to make the right decision. And that's, something that happened back in October. I had a client who well, before October, I had a client call me to add a motorcycle and his 22-year-old daughter to a policy. And this isn't something that I could say, oh, my staff did. No, I take full responsibility for this because I'm the one who added that motorcycle. I'm the one who added the daughter, and I'm the one who I did not ask about life insurance. So I added everything, and 5 months later, I see the email about a claim come in and the daughter passes away on the motorcycle. That was to me very impactful because it was on me. Like I didn't even bring it up. And the daughter passed away, no life insurance, and that hit me very hard. It was like a slap on the face. What am I doing? I'm an insurance agent. I'm supposed to, perhaps I might not be able to speak to everybody, but the people that I do speak of, I can at least bring it up and do my due diligence in that way. But I didn't do it. And after that, that was one thing that happened. Every call that I get or that my team gets, I enforce it like, hey, whatever it is, if it's just a printout of their ID card, make sure we bring up life insurance and we document it. We make comments about everything in capital letters, just no life insurance, spoke on this day at this time about life insurance, and pretty much that's it. So it's, that situation hit me because it was my year of writing life insurance, and for something to happen like this, that's a bit embarrassing for me. I hesitated about sharing that, but it was, because honestly, it's embarrassing, but it's situations like that happen, that make you do the right thing later on. Um, there was, that's one of the things happened in October. In October, same month, a sister of a friend that I used to work with, and we kept in contact over the years. She passes away, and she left two little ones too. I went to her funeral, and I saw like all the social media going on about GoFundMe accounts for her. They're from Colombia, so their parents still work till this day. They're like in their late 50s and they still work. And just being at her funeral, knowing that, I would post stories about insurance, life insurance, and she would see my stories. But it never occurred to me to like reach out to people that I know and say, hey, life insurance or something. And just being in her funeral, just thinking about it's hard. It's like, what her family must be going through right now. And then later on, just having to go through that financial hardship, it's hard. And knowing, we have similar upbringings and I know how hard it can be. So gosh, it's hard. It's difficult situations, but you just gotta come through and and make the right decision after that. And after that happened, like I sent messages to some of my close friends and I literally made a list. I made a
Mm,
list of all the people that I know. And I can show you right now because I actually I keep this list very close to me. Um, I call it God's project. I know, but this is a list that I have.
mhm,
I made a list. I went a little old school and I made a list of all the people that I know, of my family members, extended family members. Um, and and I called all those people, I quoted them. And that's how, if you're like wondering, well, how did she go from like this amount to that amount in the next couple months? It was the mindset. It was, obviously the culture that, and I'll talk about it later with like my team here. But it was also those situations that pushed me to take action and it changes the lives of a lot of people. Perhaps she would have had life insurance. It would her two kids would have been set for, college expenses until they're 18, all that kind of stuff. It makes a huge difference. Whatever, if it could have been an IUL, it could have been in simple terms, something, but it would have made a huge difference to her family. So ever since that, like I make lists, I whatever, I'm not afraid anymore of asking for life insurance. Before I would hesitate, like, oh no, maybe she doesn't want it or he doesn't want it. I don't want, at least I'll get an auto out of this, But now it's like it doesn't matter. We might not be as competitive for an auto insurance, but hey, I'm sorry we couldn't be, carriers out there for an auto. But hey, I ran a quick life quote for you, and here it is. It's 20 bucks a month for simple term, 30 bucks a month for simple term, just depending on how old they are. Can't be your auto insurance agent, but I'll be your life insurance agent. And here it is. Like, it's happened where, I push my team a lot to that too. It's also like a culture that I developed here at the agency with my team of how to bring it up. I feel like, whatever the agent, it's what my district manager says all the time, something that whatever the agent believes the agency achieves.
mm.
And I believe that we all have the capacity of writing life insurance. And we have to lead by example. So I can't just like push my team to write life insurance like, hey, just bring me a lead or talk about life insurance, bring it up. But I have to do it too. And they have to see me. And I have to believe that I can write life insurance so they can see that. And I think that's something that happened too. My team, one of my team members, she's super shy. She'll talk on the phone with someone and kind of like get them to, okay, how can I help you? Okay, you want to add a car? Sure, I'll add a car. All right, here, I'll send you your ID cards and you're on your way. But I tried different things with them. Gift cards. Hey team, we'll share. I'll give you like a bonus at the end of the month. I'll do gift cards. None of that worked. None of that worked. So what I did is I started observing them, like what are they into? What are their needs? Identifying their needs for my team members. My CSR, there doesn't go a day that she doesn't come in the office with a coffee in her hand. Every single day she comes in with coffee. And it's not just like Starbucks coffee or it's from her favorite Gravity or Bigfoot Java. So it's one of those two. And so what I did with her was, all right, Lucia, so you don't have to talk about life insurance. You don't have to quote them. But every time you get a call or you reach out to someone about life insurance, if you see that they have kids, if they're young drivers, let me know. Just tell me like, hey, Rosie, I have Bobby on the phone and he decided a new car. He's only 25 years old. You can get him a simple term. You don't have to talk to him about life insurance. I'll reach out to him. I'll do the follow-up. But just bring me the lead. I'll give you a coffee card to her favorite place. Next thing I know, she brings three leads. She brings in her friends. She, their friends are young, and she calls them. She's like, "Hey, so I have, can you show me how to do it?" Then she became interested in wanting to know how to quote them. So then I showed her, this is, go to LifeNet, and kind of like that was LifeNet was something she did not touch at all or even looked at, nothing. So then she became interested in, how do I quote? Like, if I have date of birth, name, whatever, then I showed her. Then she ran her own little quotes for her friends. And she's like, well, I have this. How their phone numbers? Do you want to reach out to them? I'm like, yeah, for sure. So every lead, whether, like it didn't have to get issued. Some of them didn't qualify, didn't have to get issued. As long as she brought me a lead, she got her coffee card. So that worked with her. My producer, he is a big soccer fan for Leo Messi. And that was just something that, his mouse pad is Leo Messi, and we joke around like all the time. He jokes, he says like he feels like he loves Leo Messi more than he loves his wife sometimes because he's like a huge fan. And so I'm like, okay, interesting. All right, so how about this? You reach X amount at the end of the year. I will sponsor you a ticket to go watch him in Miami. And that just fueled
Wow.
him to like want to do it more. He brought me simple terms, IULs. And some of that he wrote himself. When he started, I focused on just training him like just with life insurance. Yeah, obviously, the system and all that stuff. But I focused mainly for him to know more about life insurance, and I took off that mentality of life insurance is so hard to write. He didn't even know about that. He thought life insurance is just like, okay, I need to write life insurance. Like kind of like it comes with auto insurance, the same way you write auto insurance, home insurance. So he didn't even think about it. He was just like, okay, life insurance. So I trained him to the point where he was doing his own illustrations and he didn't need me to be there anymore. He was running his own illustrations, submitting the life application on his own. And of course, the first few times I reviewed it, we went over it together, made sure everything looked accurate, sent it off, and then to the point where he was comfortable enough doing his own. Um, so yeah, I told him, like if you get to this amount, I'll sponsor you your tickets. The other thing that I did too, I had with 3 staff members, I did like a mini office competition. So, some of us we get a little competitive. So I did like a mini office competition where, all right, whoever gets to 10 issued and paid will get like a free getaway for you and your spouse or you and a plus one, just wherever you want, just a free weekend, like a 3-day thing. Nothing big like, like the Hawaii promotion or anything, but it's something small. It means a lot to them. So my CSR, who's really shy, she got 11. And she was really shy, and it's something that developed within her, and it made me happy because that's just something that I saw her develop within herself. Like, you look at you, you were all shy, and look what you did. And then Carlos over here, my producer, he had more experience and such. I think he was like, like the competitiveness comes. He was like, I can't, with my experience, she can't beat me. So he was getting up there, and it was kind of like going up and down. So it was fun. It was a fun experience. It also brought us together as a team. Um, so that was a lot of fun. But like I said, like I tried different things, didn't work until I observed my team, I identified their needs and what is it that they're into. And little things can mean a lot to them. Like, if you have a girl in your office and she loves to go get her nails done, you can get her a nail salon card or like a spa, some sort of thing like that. Just little things make a huge difference.
Yeah. Wow, so much stuff you went over. That's so good. But I think I could just already tell, you're such a great leader, by really understanding your people, and once coffee got involved and getting the best out of them too, because you're telling me a lot of them were shy and you're able to break out of that. It really takes a great leader to understand what gets people going, the competitiveness thing too, understanding what they want and wanting to help them get what they want, coffee or tickets. That's a great sign of a great leader. And I also want to acknowledge you too, Rosie, that when you're up there, it's not easy to talk about the thing you messed up on. Sometimes it's a little easy to go on stage and say, "Hey, I was able to do this and that," but for you to share that story, I know it helped a lot of people. It helped me because I was I had to tell my story to my staff members because you're right. Sometimes we look at life insurance like what's in it for me, like, oh, we can make the trips or we can make the commission, but once you change it into like more of like an obligation, like a duty, like I have to, then I think that the urgency and you're doing it out of service, not out of like for yourself. So that was really great. And I think if as an agency, myself, if I look at it more like that way, then I think the numbers are going to naturally come. So that was must have taken a lot of courage. Was that planned for you to say that? Because I know there was like a little poll, right? And then there were people were clicking on like hope or like regret and things like that. Was there a chance that you weren't going to share that story, or how did that work out there?
Yeah, so before the we went up there, we did like a we met through Zoom and kind of like they send us questions. And I remember I was at the airport to Embrace and I was barely getting to work on my questions. And I had like a 3 hour wait before I hopped on the plane to Vegas. And I was like, okay, let me focus on these questions because I want to give my full attention to these questions and like be very transparent about it. And so I answered, it was like 11 questions, I think. And one of them was like a life story. And that was my life story. So what they said is, like every panelist had a story. So there was love, hope, and regret. Mine was obviously regret. And it kind of just depended on the audience because what do you want to hear about, And to be honest, when I was sitting there and she asked me to share my story, I wasn't prepared because I was like, okay, well, they want to hear about hope or love, who wants to hear about regret? So I wasn't prepared to like answer anything. So it kind of just came in and I couldn't really see the screen of the scoreboard. So I think I saw like love with like the high love and hope, like with the higher numbers at first, I think. And then all of a sudden, like regret. And I'm like, I didn't even know until like Sarah comes up to me and like, all right, Rosie, do you want to share? And I was like, oh my gosh, in my head, I was like, oh, okay. All right. I didn't expect to share that story. It was more for like Sarah and them, like kind of like this what happened, but I wasn't expecting to share that story. So it was just kind of something that just happened. Um, but I'm glad I shared it, and I'm glad that it made an impact on other agents because I think that's what we're here for too. Like I told you at the game when we did the Sweet Life promo, me listening, I've listened to your podcast with other agents, and it helped me too. Seeing what they're doing, their stories, it helped me kind of love going to the conferences too. I think like that's a big time where we as agents can develop and learn from more from each other. And like what he's doing, what she's doing, bringing it together, putting it in your own kind of ways. So that was that's very helpful too, just to learn from other agents. So my story, it's not a fun story. It's not, to this day, like it's still, I think about it. And but it's like I said, it's the life situations that happen to you. And it puts you in that situation to make the right decision and kind of like pull it out of you and see, what you're capable of too. Like this happened. Now I'm going to take full responsibility of it. And what can I do to better? Unfortunately, regret is a very powerful emotion. You can't go back in time. You can't change things. You can't undo what's done already, but you can go forward and reflect from what happened and make it better.
Wow. Yeah, it's really powerful. And when you went up there, I could tell you spoke from the heart, and a lot of people, yeah, it was an emotional moment of the conference. It's definitely a highlight for me. So thank you again for going up there. I think you're right. A lot of times, regret is not from like something you did. It's more like what you didn't do, but learning, using it as a learning experience and growing from it. It's going to help a lot of agents. But still, with that newfound responsibility and changing things around, writing 40 life policies in a month, I mean, how busy or how much work was involved there during the holidays and things like that. I mean, I could already tell you're a hard worker by just, knowing those numbers, but what was it like that month as far as like how much you worked?
It was a risk I took. It was a sacrifice. But like I always say to myself, if you don't risk anything, you risk everything. And that was just something that it was a time in my life that I had to sacrifice. Of course, I wanted to be home by 6 o'clock and be with my daughters, put them to bed and do like have dinner with them and such. But I had a goal. I had a goal, and it was a time period that I had to complete that goal. And because I couldn't protect one family, now I wanted to protect at least 100 for the year. And that is one of the goals that I have for moving on forward, protect at least 100 families every single year moving forward. So it took some sacrifice. Some of my nights I remember leaving the office here at 11:30 at night, just kind of going through every single client, my book of business, kind of going through that, cross-selling. Okay, this is a single line of it, like auto policy that I have only. I can do, potentially home, whatever, but life insurance. How many family members are rated in the auto policy? That kind of stuff. So yeah, it took work. I wasn't gonna keep my staff that late, but for me, running those reports, seeing what I have within my book, working within my book. I don't have like a big book of business, and that's not an excuse for not to work with your own book, because a lot of those 104 issued and paid came from my book or came
Hmm.
from family members, close friends. But yeah, worked that book, new quotes that came in. I worked on a life quote for them too, for new quotes, whatever they needed, life and auto quotes, business insurance, whatever they needed. Like there was always, always a life quote waiting. But it took time, and it was December.
Hmm.
Nobody is like sitting there at home like, oh yeah, let's do life insurance. Everybody's busy out of town. They're out of town. They're, busy trying to get Christmas presents. They're on a budget because, they have other expenses. It's the end of the year. But I think that was an adversity that I had to adapt to and like, okay, you know what? It's a hurdle, but we can get through it and get my team together and let's do this. I had to motivate myself to motivate my team too. Like it is hard, but it's doable. At the end of the year, I was looking at the leaderboard on my screen and every day I send my DM. You know how they do the leaderboard for 100. I think it was I can't remember who the person was, but I right below that person, I screenshot that picture and I send it to my DM and I write Rosie Lucas sometime in December. I send it to him. And they probably thought I was crazy. Like, I think when I did that, I was like barely at like 40 something or 50, it was like not even halfway there. So they thought I was crazy. My 8 other agent friends here in the same district, I told them, they're like, oh yeah, you can do it, and I appreciate them, like the support and, you can do it. You got this. But deep, deep down, like there's that, like, how in the world is she gonna do it? As you can probably tell, I'm a pretty competitive person, but with myself, like I set a bar for myself and like I'm achieving it. And if I can do this, I can do that. It's just the way that I see it for myself. So I wasn't competing with anybody to get to 100 or anything. That was just me because of the experience that I had and the goal that I set for myself. So I was like, okay, I can do it. I can do it. And I had to believe in myself. I had to change my mindset. I had to have the courage to ask more people and get no's, but from those no's, ask more people and do it all over again. So I developed a process of like, how do we ask about life insurance? And I showed my team how to do that. And then we just kind of multiplied it and it was a race. But like I said, the end of the year came closer, I was like, okay. I think the cutoff date was like the 28th of December or something like that. So I was like maybe, I don't know, like 14 away. My district manager was like, getting ready. He sent me we use Slack to send messages within our district. Send me a Slack and he's like, Rosie, you had a great year. You must be really proud of yourself. And we're really proud, David Hill, Sarah, Linda up in the territory. They're really proud of you. I'm really proud of you too. And I was like reading and I was like, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't, just don't. And he's like, encouraging me, like, just save those applications for next year to get issues. Start with some I should have paid in January. I was like, no, I'm so close to reaching 100. I kept on asking and asking, and he's like, see, we need a miracle for these to get issued and paid by the cutoff date. And I remember I told him, I believe in miracles. I believe in miracles. And and then he's like, let's do it. And I was like, all right. It was like the last few days of the year. Got in our last apps and we were just like praying to God and like, okay, let's wait for underwriting. They got them issued. But yeah, I'm a huge believer of like, I'm not a super religious person. I don't go to church every Sunday or anything, but I believe in God. I believe in miracles. I think in some of my roughest times, like I've spoken to God and, like I don't go to church and talk to him, but like, at nighttime, like, God, it's me again, and, whatever I need, he's always been there for me. I think that everything that I do it's happened for a reason. It's meant to happen at the time that it's meant to happen. And like I always say, make sure you do everything with a good intention. And everything will come as it needs to come. Make sure that, you find your purpose and do everything. Money is great. Money is great. Like, the life bonuses, all that stuff. But just to imagine like the lives that it changed and, start giving a family a simple trim for 100K, that is a big change for them. It doesn't only change their situation right now, but their future kids' situation. If something was to happen to a parent, their kids don't have to go through the financial hardship of the single parent, that's left. Um, so just seeing these results, it made me want to do it more and with the right intention, because one of the things also like what this did is it got me closer to achieving, like the Hawaii promo that was amazing. I love to travel. That was a really nice thing being out there with other agents and, having a nice trip. So it's really nice. I think, I needed that break after the long run we did in December. I think I needed that for sure. But yeah, like I always say, just do everything with the right intention and everything will come forward the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, you definitely deserve a vacation after that. But yeah, that is I love that part where you say, yeah, I believe in miracles, And I think what it actually also means is a theme here is that you really believe in yourself. But that is amazing. If you can tell us a little bit about, how your staff asks and also like how you because to write that many, you have to be good at the actual presentation or have a decent enough closing ratio and get people to take action. One thing is to get the lead, but then how can you close that much in 1 month? So what helps you actually get people to take action to s- go through with the application, would you say? Because that's, a little technical question, but
Hmm.
um, because we can have all the mindset of like, okay, I want to protect families, but if you're not really good at, you know, closing the deal, how do you,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like I want to write more life insurance, but writing it, actually, it's a big
yeah,
difference.
exactly. The
Yeah.
skill part, the will,
Yeah.
it definitely has to be there, but you obviously have the skill. So I want to maybe have you share a little bit about that part.
So I always say that I bring life insurance at the end, which I do. I tell my team how to do the same thing. Just bring up life insurance at the end. So let's say, for example, a client comes in for an auto insurance. We get a lot of walk-ins, and then over the phone too, but walk-ins come in. We do an auto quote, for example, and I do something for an auto quote. I illustrate the auto quote to them. So that right there is building trust with our clients. So I illustrate what their coverages are. So I'm not just, they came in for a quote and I'm not just giving them a number and okay, you have full coverage. Here's how much you're going to pay a month. I actually go through the coverages with an illustration so that they can understand what the coverages look like. So right then, I'm already building trust with the client.
Mhm.
So during our quoting process, they don't know this, but I'm already filling out a life application for them. Why? Because I'm asking for their date of birth, their driver's license. Their driver's license has their height and weight, right?
Mhm.
Think in every state it has that. And I ask about their family. Oh, so what brings you to this office? Where are you from? Where's your family from? No, well, I'm new to the States. Well, how long, what state did you move or what country did you move from? How's your family? Um, so you're here, any siblings, any kids, kind of, and it's not like question after question. It's evolving within our conversation. So they don't feel like, a one, two, three question. It's kind of like developing. And I keep a piece of paper next to me, kind of like jotting down notes about them. It's like an interview, like, the life application questions. So I start off with the simple term because one reason I don't know them that well, how stable they are or what they can afford. So I start off with the simple term, 100K, and then I just ask them their questions. Towards the end, when we're about to bind the auto coverage, for example, I have the routing and account number. And once I have the routing and account number, I have the life application already. Because we usually submit the routing and account number with the life application to accelerate the underwriting process. So once I have that and I'm binding the coverage for the auto insurance, they've already given me their information. There's no going back anymore. So now my
Mhm.
next question to them is, all right, so I'm just wrapping up your auto coverage. Who do you want your benefit? You have a life insurance policy. Who do you want your beneficiary to be? And at that point, they're like, what? Life insurance? Now, I'm not trying to get them interested in life insurance. Now they're interested to know about it. Now they want to know about life. What do you mean life insurance? Can you tell me more about it? Now they're interested and they're the one asking me about life insurance. So yeah, so I added on there. I have the routing account number. Do simple term because a lot of them, they don't want to go through the medical. They don't have time to come back for a medical. By the way, I do all the medicals here at the office, all the medical exams. So that way it gives me a little bit more control of, okay, it's getting done and it's getting sent over.
Mm.
And it accelerates the process too that way. But with simple term, there's no medical involved. So I'm like, well, I already have all your information. That just leaves me with the medical questions. So that way I don't have to ask all the life insurance application questions and they don't feel overwhelmed by so many questions because I start the life application the moment they walk in, but they don't know that yet. So yeah, so then I just, they get interested in life insurance. I talk to them about, well, right now you have 100,000. All we need to do is send in your information. If it gets approved, I'll let you know. You'll get an email, this and that. And yeah.
Nice. Okay, so when you present the price for the auto, are you including the price for the life together or?
Not at first. So
Mhm.
so then, I bring up the life insurance and I let them know, by the way, how your your auto insurance is going to be X amount. Well, now adding the life insurance is going to be a little bit less because you're getting a discount. So they like that. With Bristol West, I think you guys in California just got it back, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
with Bristol West here, like I know that with the discount, obviously it depends on the age of the person too. But sometimes like a young driver, 25-year-old, simple term would be like $20 for them. Sometimes the discount itself is makes up for the life policy. So it's like an easy, just kind of cross sell, throw it in there. You already have the information for the auto quote, which is most of the information for the life insurance.
Wow, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's going to help out a lot of agents too. So are you actually filling out the application on the computer or are you just writing it down?
I write it down, and then when
Okay.
they're here getting their ID card, wrapping up their outage, well, yeah, we fill out the application. But together, because sometimes this happened, and this is, like you got to find a way. So if this isn't working, I got to do something different. So, before I would just, talk about life insurance. So, all right, yeah, you're interested. I opened up the application on my monitor and like they see the application, they see how many questions and they're like, oh, I don't have time for this. Like, all right, so cool. Can you email that to me and we'll talk about it. And the moment they said that, I was like, okay, they're not going to do it. So they would
Hmm.
walk away or, can you email me information? So then I'm like, okay, I got to do something different. So that's when I started taking in their information about, demographic information and all that kind of stuff for the life application. So then when I let them know, like you have $100,000 available, who do you want your beneficiary to be? We talk about life insurance. They see the life opportunity there for them and they agree. I quote them, it's X amount. They're like, okay, interested at that moment. And then, all right, so just since there's no medical involved, I do have to ask you a couple medical questions. And then, have you been taking prescriptions in the last 3 years? That's one of the biggest ones that I ask
Hmm.
because, and I ask more about it too. It's not just about, are you taking any medications? Have you been prescribed medication that even you might not have taken, but you were prescribed? For like, depression or anxiety. Maybe they were prescribed that medication, but they never took it, but it still comes out in the database. So I do ask more about that kind of stuff. So it doesn't, it leaves us with those little few questions and then we just submit the app, they get approved and it's, like pretty fast, accelerated underwriting, and they have a life insurance in place now. Now, that's simple term. For my commercial renewals, at least, or like, their personal auto renewals too, that's when I kind of know, if they're on NOC constantly and, what kind of paying habits they have, they can afford a life insurance. That's when I'll kind of do like a little dime assessment, kind of like what their needs are and introduce an IUL. I don't think I would introduce an IUL right off the bat because I don't know my client that well. I don't know what their needs are. So they're with me for a while. I know how, for commercial renewals, I know how much they're making. I know there's room for an IUL there. So I'll introduce that and yeah, we'll go from there.
Oh yeah, I need to have a meeting with my producers right away after this one. Yeah, I think that's so cool because you already have all the information through the Life app. And once you introduce that, hey, you have a life insurance with this, who do you want your beneficiaries to be? You started off with that question, then it kind of makes them think like, okay, well, I'm actually doing it for someone. So having that like the first question, I think is great too, instead of like, okay, what's your social? And then, stuff like that, where you're just kind of like, yeah, it seems like a hassle to fill out a whole app. But if you start off with the beneficiary, I think it gets them in the right mindset, like, okay, well, there is benefit to this. There is reason for this. And well, helping out, you making them think about the beneficiary is great too. So I like that system. I really did.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, Rosie. A lot of good stuff there, great stuff. It was I had to ask you all these questions because what you did to write forwarding 1 month, there are so many questions, but now I'm starting to piece it together. It's all making sense. But still, an incredible start. Still, I say a start, but you're 5 years in, so I shouldn't say a far start. But maybe in the big scheme of thing, it is just the beginning for you. But what kind of things do you envision, or what's next as you progress in your career?
Fall back to my purpose. Why am I doing this? And who am I doing this for? Which is my two daughters. Um, there was a time where I wanted to give up and I didn't even know what I was doing at where I was going, but sometimes you just got to put those gloves on and knock on those doors for opportunity. So I think that this right now, I'm reflecting back in my 2023, and yeah, we had a great year with life insurance, but there's still learning opportunity in other areas. And I think that this is just something for me to develop within myself and like work in other areas because we never stop learning. Life never stops teaching you. And you gotta be humble too. You can't just, numbers look great, but that doesn't mean like, it's just numbers. Like I said, you gotta learn. You gotta learn stuff and learn more. There's a lot of things that I still have to learn as an agency owner. So I'm excited to keep learning from other agents, from, life experiences, and eventually, I have my daughter who's just going into, she's 10 right now. So I got to think in the future, what do I want for them? And how am I going to get there? How is this, how is farmers being an insurance agent going to help me and help them? So I, do it for them. And hopefully that, what happened to me, I can continue sharing and make an impact for other agents and learn from my mistakes, which I take full responsibility for too. And, keep learning. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the great thing about this business, I think, is that there's always room, there's always more things to learn. And I feel the same way, I feel like I'm forever going to be a student. And that's what makes it exciting because there's new things to learn and great people to meet and learn from each other. So you're definitely doing your part of sharing your story. And I want to acknowledge you for doing that, for having the opportunity already in your career to go up on stage and share stories and to go on trips. That has made a big difference in my career too. So, unbelievable, story there. So many tactics you shared about, and whatever, you put your mind into and you strategize for your agency and for your daughters. One thing I know is that you're going to be able to accomplish them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big motivation. My daughters, I'll bring my 10-year-old in here too. When I had her do some office work. And, it's just kind of like leading by example, showing her like, hey, like same thing that my mom taught me, that if you want something, you got to work for it, and it's not just going to be given to you easily. So I remember we had the life policies come in. So I had her like take out the signature page, make sure it's ready for her client, put my business card in them. So little things like that. And now her mentality is like, Mom, when I grow up, like I want to have my own business too. Okay, what do you want? So this is a huge opportunity to just keep learning and for them to I remember like, the rough, back in the day, like when I was just sitting in my office and like thinking of what am I going to do for 2023? Like I joke around with my DM about this. Like that was Rosie 2.0 back then. Now I'm Rosie 4.0 and I'm going to keep learning. I'm going to, next year it'll be Rosie 5.0. I don't know. It's just like little things like that. So when you ask me what do I see later on in the future, it's like more development and knowledge. I'm gonna keep learning. I love what we do. Insurance is, nobody wakes up saying like, I'm gonna call my insurance agent today. I'm gonna get insurance today. It's not something like that, but it can be life changing for a lot of people if you explain it, not just life insurance, but auto insurance. And then it opens the doors to like other opportunities too, like I want to do life insurance, but now with my production from last year, I qualified for the NDRT Academy. So I'll get to go to the annual meeting this year in June in Vancouver. So that to me is like, wow, like that's amazing. I didn't even like that was just way out of my like I would say way out of my league or like, wow, that's, but meeting these other agents that do a lot of production and, live annuities, all that kind of stuff, that it's like, I'm like a dot in there for them, like, like with the vast majority of production that they do. But it's something new to me and I love this. I love this opportunity and like where, you do things with good intentions. And like I always say in Spanish, el que no habla, Dios no lo escucha, right? So what that means is like if you don't speak up for yourself, how is the universe gonna know what you want?
Mm.
So yeah, but I'm excited and this is a fun time. There's no going back and I'm not giving up on whatever I set my mind to do. Yeah.
Oh wow. You're just inspire me right now. That's yeah, beautifully said. That's great opportunity, and I love the humbleness, and I just feel your passion of and your awareness of where you're at in your career. Such an exciting time, and I feel like you know where you're headed to with the people you're surrounding yourself with, these education that you're taking advantage of. So, yeah, I just have a such a great feeling of where your career is headed, and I'm just gonna be looking forward to being able to witness it by keeping in touch with you. So, yeah, Rosie, thank you so much for your time. This is great, to feel the passion of somebody in the business like you because, yeah, it's not always easy, but you have such a great attitude about it and enthusiasm about it. And with taking accountability and from your learning experiences, you're just going to keep growing. And it's going to be great to see you do that.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All
I'm
right. Well,
excited to keep learning. But yeah, I'm sorry.
no,
I
no.
thought this would be like 20 minutes or so. I'm like, I don't have much to say.
No, no, we covered a lot, and yeah, I'm grateful for you sharing your story and getting us all excited and getting us all believing in ourselves and having an optimistic attitude about the insurance business. And you're right, the production that we have is like we're compared to like the big scheme of things, it's just like a little pebble, We could do so much more, and we could build our teams. There's really one of the things that I like about the business is that there's really no limit. And
Exactly.
I think that's something you can't say about every business. So it's just all starts in our mindset and that part and the work ethic. And those are things that you definitely have.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Rosie. Well, I can't wait to put this out. But yeah, until next time, thank you so much for your time again. And let me know if there's anything I could do to help.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me.
All
Have a
right.
good day.
You too.